Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back, welcome back. Let me just get myself comfortable. Welcome back to Making Sense Conversations. And I'm so happy once again to be here to continue that series we've been doing on David and Goliath. I hope you've all enjoyed it. And thank you so much for the comments that have been going on throughout the week about that conversation. Even past what we did last Friday, but it's always good to have you guys here live. So looking forward to today. So if you're new to Making Sense, welcome to our community, to this growing group of people that are just out to get financially empowered through thought-provoking conversations. So when we're doing these conversations, please just think of us, of me and my co-host, which I'll be introducing shortly. Just think of us as we're in your sitting room having this conversation, because I think when it comes to money, when it comes to business, when it comes to our careers, and in fact, when it comes to life, the best gems, I think, are through conversations, because that's when it's about what have actually people gone through. So Making Sense is started because of the book I wrote called Making Sense. So a lot of the principles are from the book, and we draw them out. You know, I think about Making Sense as a tree. It's a trunk, but from that trunk comes so many branches, and a lot of the branches is what happens in this conversation. So please let us know where you're tuning in from. I always like to see where this community is from. Let us know where in Kenya you're from, where in Africa you're from, and indeed where in the world you're from, so that we know. And it also helps us when we're doing these conversations to put it into context as much as we can. So welcome everybody. Thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for giving me your mental space today. And as I said, this is the second part of the David and Goliath conversation. And if you've missed any of them, I just highly recommend that you actually go back and look at them. Yeah. So in a nutshell, the inspiration from this series has come from the story of David. And again, 1 Samuel 17, just go back and read it, yeah? It's David who was fighting this giant called Goliath, but the way he did it is so different from the way we think we should fight battles. And all of us have battles going on in our lives. We've got battles with our money. We could even be having battles with our relationship. We've got battles with our career. Of course, this has been a great season to talk about this, because as a world, we have been facing and continue to face the biggest battle a lot of us may see in our lifetime, which has come through all the situations we are facing as a result of COVID, yeah? So David chose to see him differently. He was positioned him as the underdog, but by seeing himself differently, choosing different weapons, he defeated Goliath to the point of rejecting the king's armor. And that's what we're talking about today. Last week, we did the turning point, and the turning point was really that David turned away from his brother, who thought he had no right to be inquiring about what was going on with Goliath. We went through, yeah, how turning points look like, what enables you to see your turn, what you need to turn away from, marking your turn. And I'm recapping in a very brief way because I want to build the context of this next discussion. And as I said before, please refer to last week's video and even the intro video if you are joining at this point. So once again, welcome everybody. We are streaming across multiple channels. We're streaming on Facebook, on Centonomy, and on WACEKE NDUATI. We're also streaming on YouTube. We're streaming on LinkedIn today. So welcome everybody who's joining us from LinkedIn. We're streaming on Twitter. Please let us know, even as we go through this is not a technical conversation. It's one of those conversations that hits emotional touch points, but it's not technical. So let us know, even from your own experience. I really loved last week. And if Regina is there, I remember you, Regina, who was just really sharing her experiences, turning away, because we talked about the turning point and the things we have to turn away from, habits, mindsets, and including people. So today we look at another critical aspect to this and start translating it into our lives. Our money, our businesses, our careers. We are talking about shedding the weight. And you know what I love about Making Sense Conversations? I always feel like every time I am here, I am talking to myself, like I'm addressing my own solution, because this is something that even when I was preparing, what do I want to share today? And I was praying about it. Yes, I pray about these conversations because some of this insight is not me. It belongs to God. I am just a channel, yeah? I was like, yeah, this is relevant for me. So today, I'll also take a minute every so often to absorb, even for me, what I need to do. But before I continue, I just want to give a heads up and to reintroduce. You guys know about Sheba. Sheba has been with Making Sense from the beginning, and she's joined us for this series. So Sheba, welcome back, and how are you?
Thank you so much, WACEKE. I'm good. I'm happy. It's been a really good week. I'm really grateful for everything that's happened, and also just grateful for another day to just have this conversation about David and Goliath.
Yeah.
Last conversation was amazing, and today I can't wait to learn and even share even more. For those of us, I'm really happy we are on LinkedIn finally.
Yes,
And
yes.
for those of us who are in the house and haven't met me before, I'm Sheba Njage, and I'm on a mission to work with people to transform their lives. And I do that through coaching at Centonomy, and even through my business, through training at Centonomy and managing our programs and trainings there. I also lead an amazing team of communicators at Centonomy, everybody with the PR and communications team. And I'm really excited to have this conversation today. So welcome, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much, Sheba. Really, really glad to have you. Guys, remember to also, I wish I could touch base with all of you individually, but welcome back. I know we have a lot of people as well who've been with us and continue to be with us every week. So please welcome back. And remember, as we go along, please put in your comments, please put in your questions, do it as early and as quickly as possible so that we try to address anything or pick on any experience that you also want to share. So we are shedding the weight. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I just feel so heavy. Yeah. You don't want to get out of bed in the morning. You're just feeling heavy. You know, you have things to do that day, but you're just feeling heavy. We know you have even conversations you need to have, but even trying to approach them, you're just feeling heavy. You go out there, and sometimes the things on the outside may be looking right. You have the right job, you have the right circumstance, you have the relationship, but you just feel heavy. And the context of today is that once David and Saul accepted that David is going to fight, and he allowed him to fight, Saul tried dressing David in his tunic and his armor, the helmet, the breastplate, the wax, yeah? David tried walking in this, but said he can't use them as he's not used to them. So he went off and battled Goliath with 5 smooth stones that he had put in his bag and a sling in his hand. So he rejected the king's armor. He walked away and just said, I'm not comfortable with this, yeah? And even as we go through this, I just want you to start thinking, what have you tried to dress yourself with that is not authentically you? And sometimes people ask me, and I've been asked this before, why I could be here just talking about where to invest or how to build a business or your budget and things like that, yeah? But why and what's the difference with this platform and this community we're growing? We're also going to start looking at the underlying things that are getting us wrong. Because even when we don't do some of these things, money is not the answer. More money is not the answer. So money will just come and find you with the same problem. Even though if I put soil in this glass and I don't remove the soil, it doesn't matter how much clean water I put in the glass, it will still be dirty until I get rid of the soil. So sometimes we have to go beneath the surface. And there's a lot of information on money out there, but I don't think many people go beneath the surface. And this is what we want to do. And that's why we keep telling you, share, because once you ask questions, we also understand what's beneath the surface, yeah? Thank you, Soft Rod. Welcome back to the session, yeah? So the first point, and I'm gonna share about 8 to 10 points today. Even before the clear decision to do it, yeah? Remember in the introductory session, we asked about why, what's your dare? And I think every conversation we've had since then, we still go to why are you doing it? So we're never going to run away to the why. So David in the story says, let no one lose heart I will fight this giant. And I've paraphrased it. It could have been something like, I will fight the giant and show all of you in the army how great I am. But no, David's words are, let no one lose heart. I will fight the giant. When you think about your why in this life, your why to make money, your why to grow a business, remember, it's not just about you. So we keep going back to this thing. David's why he faced Goliath was, there was always a deeper reason. Yeah. So when you find people in life defeating giants, those people we claim are successful. Yeah. It's not because of what's in it for them, not just because of what's in it for them, yeah, but what's in it for other people. This is contrary, very contrary to the way we were brought up or what we hear the world talking about. When we look at success, wealth, progression, we look at it a lot of the times purely from what will it do for us, yeah? Even big things that are affecting you. Let's take debt, for example. Maybe you'd make a bit more progress if there was a purpose behind the debt. If when you got out of debt, you're like, if I get out of debt, this is the impact I'm going to have. If I get out of debt, this is what I'm going to be able to do for my family. If I get out of debt, this is what I'm going to be able to do for my employees, yeah? You would earn more money if you are, even if in your job, there was a purpose behind the money. That's not about you. We're not saying you're not important, but I think we are so absorbed in ourselves a lot of the time that we can't see the bigger picture. So we've got to start asking yourself, what will you do when you earn? I remember last week I shared the story about Centonomy of the first intake we had. We struggled. And finally, one person showed up and we decided, even if it's just about this one person, the show must go on. What is it for you that the show must go on for? And why am I talking about that? Why am I saying we must stop thinking only about ourselves? Yeah, because that's heavy. It's too heavy to carry ourselves everywhere we go. And unless I'm the only one who feels this way, don't you sometimes feel your emotions are too much? That your emotions are dictating us? We're not doing the correct things we should be doing because it's our emotions. When you're letting your emotions drive your everyday decisions and you're not doing things all the time because you don't feel like doing them, you're carrying too much weight. And the first weight that we must shed is ourselves. I've said it, we must shed ourselves. We must stop making life just about ourselves. We make life about ourselves when we don't do things because I am afraid. I don't do things because I will look bad. When I don't do things because I will look foolish. When I don't do things because what will other people think about me? Can you see the common factor there? Me. When you don't do things because I was offended, yeah? Our ambitions that are simply about ourselves, yeah? And let me tell you, my experience this came from our book. I have known I want to write a book for 10, 11 years. In fact, I wrote it in my journal 11 years ago. When I finally started writing this book, it took me a whole 2 years to write the book. It tells you something about good things don't come quickly. But I had finished the book in 1 year. But when I read it, it was not just about getting a book out. When I read it and gave it to some people to read, it was nice, but it was not emotionally connecting with people. So if it was about me and me wanting to get a book out, I would have had a book out even 5 years ago. Even from 5 years ago, because I'd been writing for the newspaper for a while, a lot of people were telling me, now is the right time, you should write a book, then you'll be called an author. Once you can be called an author, you can do this. But all those reasons were very self-centered, yeah? When I turned the book, I made it about other people and even got people who want to share their stories for the purposes of other people. So the book you hold in your hands is not the first manuscript or the first draft, yeah? So it took another year to turn it into stories that are relatable. Characters who share stories because not what's in it for them, but what's in it for you, the reader. A lot of you here have read the book. So I think this is where also the concept of be your brother's keeper comes from. It's just saying it is so hard to keep living our lives because of ourselves only. So we've got to shed the weight of ourselves. Yes, our emotions, our feelings, our fears, what other people think about us. If you go through your thought, if you just observed yourself for a day and started understanding how many thoughts are about you, about what you will feel, even when we package them that they're about other people, they're honestly about us, how you will feel, how you will be offended, how you didn't get what you want, you cannot even see the next stage or pick up the right weapons if you're still focusing on ourselves. So when I said this, when I got this insight as I was reading this story, even I was guilty, because I'm like, so many of my problems are because of what I'm thinking about myself. So we kind of have to put ourselves away for a bit. It doesn't mean you're not important, but because if we agreed, all of us today, and I can see the comments coming in, Lillian, yes, your why should be about others, shedding ourselves, Abdi, you thought you were talking about losing weight. No, we're not talking about weight loss today, we're not talking about weight loss. And Abdi, thank you so much for 4 o'clock in the morning. Thank you, Abdi, for joining us so much. It's not, if you just put away yourself, what would you do? And I want to ask guys, share, what would you do if for just this time that we're here together for the next 45 minutes, if we stopped thinking about ourselves? Because this is the foundation of what we're talking about today. Everything else, once we agree on this point, guys, the rest you'll just write them in your notebooks and go and start changing your lives. We've got to stop thinking about ourselves. Sometimes we don't do great things because we are scared. That is still about ourselves. I don't think we were born to be small. And we cannot shrink into greatness. And when we are only thinking about ourselves, we are using up just a little bit of our fuel tank, yet we're supposed to use up the whole fuel tank. Sheba, I can see you really nodding. I know I've started off with a very almost harsh way of let's stop thinking about ourselves.
It's not harsh, it's true. And it's so interesting, this very first point, because I was just having a discussion around this with a good friend of mine this morning in a session. And what's really standing out, and I even had to take a notebook and pen, so I hope everybody has one as well. And what I'm hearing and being reminded is that the ego can easily bring down the best of us.
Yes.
It is so easy for you to put in a lot of work in your life, in your business, in your career, in your family, in your friendships, and then the ego takes it all away, and you start from the beginning. And that's what you're talking about, that sometimes, especially if we are not careful and if we are not conscious about ourselves and our present, we can be the people who are bringing ourselves down. And where this comes from, it's from our thoughts, our actions, our beliefs, our fears, all these things we usually call. And we were just talking about this morning, and I was telling her about how I'm afraid to do something different that I'm really hoping to do. And then she's telling me, but why are you afraid? And as we were talking about it, I just realized it's purely because of me. And then she asked me a very interesting question and said, so what would be the worst thing that would happen if you don't achieve what you're saying you want to achieve? And what's preventing you from that? And I just realized I was being my worst enemy. When I was saying, what will other people think? What will I look like? What if it doesn't work out the way I want to? And it's so easy for our ego to prevent us from achieving what we want to achieve or what we are meant to achieve.
Absolutely. And I think I love that you brought up that point of ego. Then the ego tries to cheat us that it can control everything so that we can get exactly what we want. So we spend so much of our energies trying to control and manipulate situations, circumstances, that usually most of the time are completely out of your control, instead of just putting yourself out there into the every flow of life. And I just want to tell people, when I say shed yourself, it doesn't mean that you go and take nonsense from other people. Yeah. So shedding and losing yourself, or not thinking so much about yourself, does not mean you become the punching bag for people, or you become the carpet that people are walking all over. By no means. In fact, sometimes when you stand up for yourself, it is because you have gotten over yourself and over your fears enough to stand up for yourself. So this in no way means that you put yourself in a place where you get taken for granted. Remember, David turned away from his brother. So turning away from his brother was the right thing to do. Yeah. And even Richard, you're saying, shed your drinking buddies. Yeah. So we're not saying, oh, now I must, because I'm thinking about other people, I must just do everything everybody else wants me to do. That's another weight we don't want. Yeah. But it's just, yeah, I think software, you've actually taken the words, the selfishness, the self-centeredness, the ego. Yeah. But you're saying optimum performance has always come when I do things for the greater good of our larger purpose. Yeah. You will, if you run a business, if you start thinking about your customers more than you think about yourself, you're on the right track. You start thinking about your team. If you're a leader, more than just yourself, you're on the right track. Yeah. We start thinking even collectively. Let's start thinking about our continent more than then thinking about instant gratification. We're going to be on the right path. Then collectively, it will also work for our own lives. Yeah. So David saw, first of all, even before he started shedding this king's armor, he had, even from the past, seen his experience differently. So a large part of why David was able to do this is because he saw, when I was there killing a lion and handling a bear, this is what positioned me for this. And that I'm going to touch on next time. That aspect is so deep. It was too much for today's conversation. But what is the weight? Some of you, like Richard, have already started talking about it. It was shedding my drinking buddies. And maybe, Richard, you shed your drinking buddies because you also find that when you're with them, you start, I call it the chameleon effect. Have you ever found when sometimes you're with people, there's a chameleon effect? They say something, you don't agree, but since it's the common opinion, you're like, Sheba, do you agree? You just say yes. Then in your head, you're like, why did I do that? It's a chameleon effect. In a nutshell, trying to be the audience. And guys like Richard, please continue sharing what you think the weight is. I remember when I was in primary school, this used to happen a lot when we were kids. And some kids used to go like abroad for holiday. They'd go to the US for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then when they come back to school, they have an accent. Yeah. So that's just the chameleon effect. You've gone for 2 weeks, you've come back with an accent. Yeah. So in the story, Saul gave David the go ahead and then dressed him in his tunic. This is the first thing that caught my attention. David did not ask for it. Yeah. Have you had situations where many times, so Saul has given David the blessing, but look at what the almost underlying condition that it's coming with, wear my tunic, yeah? Many times has someone given you their blessing or the go ahead on something only later to realize that it came with conditions, yeah? And those conditions would be heavy. This is why David rejected that tunic, yeah? I know for a fact, having been in business, a lot of people face this in business, yeah? You get partners or you even get investors. They talk a good story in the beginning, only later to realize that there were hidden and often unsaid terms and conditions to this partnership, yeah? Maybe the money you got came with an expectation of how much they will be involved. They gave you money, you found them sitting in the office every day and having a meeting with your team members. They gave you money and decided this is the way you want to run your business, and they are changing the core of the business, yeah? People have gotten married and told statements like, I will take care of you. And I'm talking about these things honestly, because every time we do making sense, something always comes back to money. A lot of people have been told, don't worry, I will take care of you, yeah? Only for that to come with conditions. It meant I get to do what I want when I want with no reference to you, as long as I'm the one providing the finances, yeah? So when I said Saul gave him his tunic, David didn't ask for it. So sometimes the people, what do people give us that comes with underlying conditions. I think from my own experience, people give you approval for something, even emotional approval, but many times it comes with underlying conditions. Yeah, even you, I want you to do this for me. So I think this is something to be so careful about. When you're relying on somebody for something, are there any, maybe you are accepting of the conditions, but at least are you aware that there will be conditions? Sheba, I don't know if you've ever experienced where you're like, oh, we are in it. Oh, it couldn't have been a chama, but when you get to the chama, you realize there were conditions we did not talk about.
Many times, and
yeah,
it's not just, it's business, you know,
yeah,
some business partnerships either gone wrong or not worked out, or onboarding of certain clients, you know, thinking that we are going to do things a certain way, and then getting in and realizing this is not for us, this is not what we signed up for, these are not the terms, you know.
These are not the terms.
These are not the terms. They are not even the standards we expected or even the environment to work under. Relationships as well, from friendships, normal friendships, to even those romantic, you know, the way you talked about people being married, even when dating. So many times in my life, I have found myself in a space where I am almost changing or absorbing or almost changing my behavior or my ways of doing things because of other people. And it's with a promise. You know, there is usually a promise.
Yeah.
Usually a promise of something. Either it's business, it's a promise of growth, revenues, things, whatever. If it is relationship, it's a promise of a happy ever after, or I will always be there for you as a friend or even as a sibling. It's because of that promise, and then you get in there and realize this is not what I expected, or this is not what we had signed, or I had signed myself up for. I have felt like that.
Yeah, so many times. And it's like you start being a lookalike of somebody else, a photocopy, whether it's how they talk or how they think. It's like we've got to ask ourselves, whose tunic are we wearing? And in the first session, we talked about blueprints, where there's this blueprint we were given, and we started saying, you know, the famous blueprint: go to school, get a good job, get married, have children, die, you know? So, so we're not saying those things are bad, but if you break out of that blueprint, people are like, what is wrong? Yeah. So who are, sometimes we've got to ask ourselves, and I've been asking, have I become a lookalike or someone else? I remember, and when I was doing this, I now get why this used to almost offend me so much. When I started Centonomy, especially when I we started doing a lot of things on the media, a lot of people said, you're the Susie Orman of Kenya. And I respect Susie Orman. I like her books. I've read her. I've listened to her. Yeah. But no, I am not the Susie Orman of Kenya. I'm the WACEKE NDUATI of Kenya. Yeah, because I'm not trying to be a lookalike. Yeah, so when people would come and say, but you know how Susie Orman did it, some of them would do it in a good way, but others would be like, why can't you just replicate what you're doing? Yeah, I respect her, but I'm not her. So even when we look at who we're drawing inspiration from, and that is why what we expose ourselves to on social media is even now has become more critically important. Yeah. Draw inspiration, draw the principles from them, but don't let yourself get dressed in their clothes. They will never fit. It will be uncomfortable because David said, I can't walk. I'm not comfortable in this. You'll never succeed. Parents, and you know, I'm guilty of this. Sometimes we try and create lookalikes out of our own children, but they came here different. You're a leader of a team in a business. You try and create lookalikes, yeah? Don't be in business to create lookalikes, yeah? Don't go into a job also to become a lookalike. There's a long time ago when I first started writing articles for the paper, I used to have a boss who I had to submit even the article that was going to the paper to him, and he would completely rewrite the article. It was, you say tomato, I say tomato kind of story. So if he says tomato, it has to be tomato, yeah? But look at it years later, I'm the one who ended up writing, he didn't. So if I'd tried to become a lookalike like him, what you have in front of your hands, guys, would not be there. I think even as Africans, we struggle with this, yeah, because we have a narrative, yeah. We've been told for a very long time, the best is in the West. And no offense to anyone from the West, but I guess it's just a narrative because of our history, we were told, yeah. So we've always been trying to play catch up. The definition of poverty came from the West. It didn't come from us. And I think people in the West would go and look at what my grandmother and say she's poor. But listen, my grandmother breathes fresh air every day. She grows a lot of her food. She eats healthy, yeah. She eats organic without ever knowing that organic is a thing, yeah. She has joy, she has family, she has community. So she's not poor, but if someone from the West went and visited her in her house, they'd say, oh, poverty, yeah? So even I think our leaders, our governments even need to start looking at development differently. It's not shiny things, yeah? It's the simple things, but it starts with us having this conversation. We've got to stop being lookalikes. We've got to simply stop being lookalikes, yeah? So it's hard. And Software, you've asked a good question. How do we maintain a healthy detachment from the subconscious need for approval? Because the subconscious things are more dangerous mental influencers. That is correct. And I think the things we're talking about today happen in process. There's no pill I can give you today to say, okay, you drink this pill and it's done. Even you have this conversation and it's done. In my opinion, it's actually, even if we go back to David, yeah, it's understanding what do you come with first. Yeah, so the end goal is not to detach. It's first, what have I come with? And then start using what you have come with. Because the more you use it, the bigger of a muscle you build against now that subconscious. So the subconscious starts to change. So if you read the story, even to justify why he should do this fight, he talked about the lion and the bear, that while he was a shepherd, he did. But I think where a lot of us go wrong is what we have done in our lives, or we naturally can do, we discount. When we're teaching Centonomy classes, whenever we ask people, what have you done well? It takes them a long time to do that. But when we ask, where have you failed? Sheba, have you seen it in Centonomy classes? In 1 minute, people have 10 answers. So we've got to start training our minds to store the right information. What information are you storing in your mind? That's how it's going into that subconscious. If you're constantly storing, and if you need to journal, if you need to write, so that this becomes a process, because you're right, Software, we are rewiring. Keep the good things about yourself in your head. Sheba, I don't know if you have anything, experience to add. Yeah.
Also have something to say based on what he's asked, which is very, very important. It's also just to always remember that our subconscious is like a camera, right? It's because of certain physical things that are happening around us, that are manifested around us, then those physical things end up being embedded into our subconscious. So the question becomes, and that we need to always ask ourselves, are there certain ways are there certain things in my physical around me, or that I am doing physically, or in my space, in my environment, that are negative, right? That are ending up and being embedded onto or manifesting into my subconscious until I start changing my behavior. And let me speak about this and say, for example, I know he said Socrates says there are more dangerous mental influences, but where have these mental influences come from? They've come from a physical place. And so here, this is where now you need to start taking stock, or taking an inventory of what is happening in your environment. What are you reading? What are you watching? Who are you following?
Absolutely.
Because everything you do in the physical, it starts manifesting in your brain, and it starts influencing how you're starting to do things. Kumbe it's something you saw on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok that now is affecting how you think and how you do things. So we need to start letting go of those physical aspects that are negative and that are affecting what's going on in our minds. That's one of the things I would say, how to start maintaining a healthy detachment. Yeah.
I love this question because I think it's so critical, and I'm glad it was asked, because this is where the weight is. So Softron, thank you so much for it. Yeah. And even Gloria saying you've been shedding the weight of people who put me down, been carrying it for years, been weighing you down. We have Japheth, you're saying we've bogged ourselves with habits. Richard, you're adding on, our minds have been globalized, wanting to copy each other. So also, to add on to what Shaba said about what physically are you doing? What are your habits? What are your patterns? Who do you hang out with? Yeah. And that's why we started last week with turning away. What do you need to turn away from? What is the social media you're exposing yourself to? Yeah. But we've also got to start understanding what is the root. And why I'm coming back to Gloria, your comment, you're saying you've been weighing down for years. What has been weighing you down, and what is the root? And the root is often a belief system. So there's an experience that could have happened to you even when you are young, yeah. And even in the book, I write about how my first experience with saving didn't go so well, and then because of that, I adopted a habit. So that became the weight, yeah. But even things that were said to us when we were very young. Yeah, and I've been in a class I teach on fear in the entrepreneurship class. I talked about an experience where someone slapped me, a relative slapped me when I was very young for speaking out. And for a long time, I would never speak up, yeah, because that is what. So until I went back and realized that fear of speaking came from that event, that is when I weakened the hold it had on me. So I believe awareness is the greatest agent for change. And in fact, David was very self-aware to know his strengths, yeah? Awareness is the greatest agent for change. So if you're thinking, how do I undo? Sometimes also the starting point is where did I like calling these things the thief, yeah? How did the thief enter? And sometimes it's from people who meant well in our lives, but we've got to be say, okay, so-and-so was important to me, could even have been your mom or your dad, but that was not right. So we've got to call it out and say, actually, that was not right. Because that was happening, this is the pattern I have adopted. Like for me, because I was slapped, the pattern I adopted is not speaking up, even when I have an opinion. So now that I knew it, it was now where courage and willpower comes. The next time there's an opportunity, despite your emotions, this is where shedding yourself comes from. Despite how I felt about it, I spoke up, yeah? So that's where it actually comes from. Because there's a lot of weight when we try to be like others. We adapt the mindset of others, even what they say about us, yeah? Being even me, this carried on to my first business where I'm not voicing my opinions, but I'm doubting myself in favor of others, yeah? And the fact is that, and I like we're going on this journey together because it doesn't matter how much you try, you can never be comfortable in the clothes that are not yours. David said he couldn't use that armor because he was not used to it, yeah? You cannot fit into what is not yours. If you buy a house because somebody else has it, or somebody else has told you to buy it, or somebody has said you don't amount to anything until you own this house, it will never feel like home. Home is home. And let me just bring this into context about money, because this is where money comes to become our master. Yeah, we're not supposed to be enslaved by money, but we become enslaved by money, not because of the end result of our status of the finances. We become enslaved because the way we let fear and all these other things control us until it entered into the way we use our money. A lot of money will never make you feel better about yourself. Money will never make you feel better about yourself. When you're honest about it, yeah, it doesn't. There's still a void. There's always a void. Money simply, the way we were created by our creator, simply did not make money to fill a void. It didn't, yeah? So a lot of us want more money so that we can fit into a blueprint. Wear clothes that are not ours. Get social status. Get recognition. Get attention. It is attention, not respect, yeah? So in the book, Making Sense, I also write that expecting money to give you identity is like expecting your 5-year-old child to become the family doctor. If you have a 5-year-old child in your house, imagine now telling them, I'm sick, I have a flu, what medicine should I take? It is too much of a responsibility for money, and money was not created to have that kind of power over us. You will keep wanting more and more. That's why you find people, I want 1 million, then it goes to 5 million, then it goes to 10 people, because money in itself can never be enough. We keep thinking it's a bigger void. Unfortunately, we see it when we see all these stories of corruption. Sometimes I ask myself, what is this billion going to do for you that the last billion did not do for you? And when money becomes that, it becomes a weight. You keep wanting more and more and looking for identity in money, yeah? Money is there to support you and to act as a tool for your blueprint. But you've got to start understanding, what is your blueprint? A lot of people have found themselves in debt because they were trying to fit into somebody else's blueprint. Somebody else told them, start this business. Somebody told them, start this investment. Somebody else told them, you can't give me this great life, then you're not a man. So they went and took debt to try and please somebody else, yeah? So we've got to wear our own clothes, and that in itself can be a whole topic, yeah? But we've just got to start wearing our own clothes, not anybody else, our own clothes. So Mwangi, I know you're saying it's so painful to really get to understand some painful stuff that would have been shared a long time ago. I personally believe, everything comes at the right time. So some of these realizations come at the right time, and they're finding you in a place that you've realized them, yeah, you're going to shed them a lot faster. So I'm really happy that this is the conversation that enabled you to actually see that, yeah. And guys, just let me know when you have faced. There's always, you can tell when you're wearing your own clothes. Sheba, can you tell when you're wearing your own clothes?
Of course, I really like that phrase, yeah. Because every time I've tried on clothes that don't fit me, you can even see it. It's either oversized or too small. And what I was just writing down here when you're talking about this, the challenge of wearing clothes that don't fit you, or doing things that do not fit your lifestyle, for example, or doing things that are not aligned to your values, is number one, you are cheating yourself. You can't lie to yourself, you can't lie to God, you can't lie to the devil. Yeah. So you are actually living a lie or experiencing a lie. That's number one. And number two, it's going to be a very uncomfortable experience, right? But what I've also realized is that even as Mwangi Kevin has written, sometimes it's so painful when you realize some of these things you could have shared a long time ago. I'm reminded that as long as we are alive, we have a chance for self-awareness and therefore self-acceptance. And accepting yourself is also being able to say, okay, I know that's what I want in my future, but I'm not able to have it right now. And that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge the things that you seek, but not to pretend and acquire things that you don't need. And that self-acceptance, it's a process, Kevin. That's what I'm saying. Don't beat yourself up and blame yourself for all the 30 years, 20 years, 15 years that you're like, how could I not see this? It's okay. How you see it, it means now you can take a step or two towards dealing with it. So self-acceptance, first of all, the healing starts from acknowledgement. Acknowledging that this life doesn't fit me. This lifestyle does not fit me. These clothes don't fit me. And then now being able to say, who am I? And accepting myself and starting the journey to self-acceptance and setting yourself free, like Paddy is saying. Put it out and take steps to walk authentically.
When I was younger, maybe until up to 5 years ago, I'd keep buying heels with the hope that one day I'll be able to walk in heels. I'd see women who can walk Heels, imagine, yeah. And every time I'm buying shoes, I'd be like, this is the one. I'll even practice in the house, yeah. Maybe not 5 years ago. I am old, yeah. Maybe 10 years ago. But one day I was just like, you know what? Heels are not for me. Kudos to all of you women out there who can wear heels. Not for me, yeah. I can't wear heels. Heels are just not. And anytime I would try and wear heels, they would look great. But I'm not feeling great. I'm not feeling comfortable. I'm so self-conscious. I'm feeling like I'm going to trip and fall at any given time. So whenever we are not doing things that are authentic to us, yeah, we can tell. And that's why I think, Sheba, the feeling of not being good enough comes from. Because we are constantly battling with I'm not good enough, because we are always, and Richard, you said it's stereotyping ourselves. We keep thinking we're not good enough because of the blueprint we have put in front of us, because good enough looks like a certain way that you are not built to look like, yeah? And when you stop stereotyping, or we stop defining good enough based on somebody else's circumstances, then it stops. You are, as long as you're alive, you're good enough. As long as you still have breath, you're good enough, yeah? So it's about what can I do today so that we also stop this thing of self-condemnation. Great, there are fantastic realizations coming today, but the aim of this subject today is not, we don't want to become, we go and we are like, oh, why didn't I know this? Oh, why? Don't beat yourself down. Life is like this. I'm here talking because, as I told you guys in the beginning, I literally came up with these points for myself. So even me, I was like, oh my goodness, I have made so many mistakes. But I guess it's not what we didn't know before that's a problem. It's what do we now do now that we know, that we are more self-aware. And self-awareness is a journey. People talk about it in a very self-help kind of way, but self-awareness, knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, is just a journey we all have to undertake. David, this was really, really hit home for me. Look at the context of this story, yeah? A king has offered you their tunic and their armor and their helmet, and to paraphrase the whole wording, you have said no. A king, imagine going to sit in front of the president, whichever country you're from, they ask you to do something and you say no, yeah? Or someone who has authority in your life, the CEO of your company for some of you, and you say no. For many of us, when we face people who according to us have influence or title or position, it's like our minds stop thinking. We just naturally accept what they say, yeah? Even when I started business, I would naturally just accept what other people who are in business said. I'll be like, oh, you've been in this business or in this corporate world for much longer than me, so it must be me who is wrong. Now, I think when you're self-aware and you know yourself and you know where you are coming from, I was a shepherd killing a lion, so this is what I have to offer. It's not easy for other people to get scared of other people because of their position, their title, their money. Even notice when people are in front of people who have a lot of money, they change. Yeah, we become chameleons. We want to agree with everything that they say. If Richard Branson came and talked to you about business, you'd want to accept everything he's saying because he's Richard Branson. Yeah. So this was the king giving him his team. Usually we just silence ourselves. Yeah. So how did David do this? Because he just knew what he had. And I think that's the journey. Even as we continue these conversations, one of the core things is for us to rediscover our identity. Maybe for so many of us, what we thought we had is not what we have, yeah? And we're entering a new season where we must start to discover what are the tools we are actually sitting with. Even all these mistakes that we have happened, I'll go back to somebody, I can't remember the name, someone's comment about how do you actually, your soft rod, how do you get your subconscious to work with you? All the failures you've gone through, all the pain you've gone through, all the mistakes that you're feeling, I wish I knew this before, and I've carried so much weight, I should be carrying it. Everything has positioned you for something. Everything has positioned you from something. And just to link what we've talked about today with what we did last week, in turning, he shed the weight. When he turned, the one weight he shared is the weight of other people's opinions. And we are going to have to shed the weight of being afraid of other people. We want to control our image in other people's eyes, that we conform a lot, we even lie a lot, yeah, because of other people. So a lot of the weight we carry in some way, form or other, even if you look at what you guys are saying, it's other people's noise, it's other people's opinions. And the journey we have to walk is stepping out of other people and what we feel in front of other people. Then it becomes about us. It's stepping out of, in a nutshell, the journey we're taking is stepping out of ourselves, as we said in the beginning, and then other people's opinion. And that journey starts with understanding, who are we? What have I come to the table with? Yeah. So Sheba, I'll give you some time to just do final comments before I wind up.
I think for me, I'm grateful that we've had this conversation, because as we usually even have this chat, and let me use the analogy I usually give in class, in a personal finance class, when we are usually talking about debt and investments. And I usually say, investments, when you want to invest your money, is because you're thinking about growth. You want something that's going to take you to the next level, possibly even generate more money for you.
Yeah.
Progression.
Yeah.
But then I always tell my clients and participants in class, you have to realize, if you're dealing with debt, especially debt that is personal debt, you first need to shed that weight, because debt can be a weight that is preventing you from doing what you need to do when it comes to investing. Now, bringing it to this conversation is asking ourselves, what is that thing that I'm carrying that I realize now that I do not need to continue carrying it anymore as I walk towards the destination I want? Because sometimes we are carrying so much, as we have discussed, our parents' thoughts of us, our siblings' thoughts of us, family members, our own thoughts, everybody's. And then we realize it's too heavy for us to continue even walking the journey. So I like that we've just talked about, let's go and have a look at all the weights that we are carrying, and also to realize there are some weights that are worth carrying, and those we will be honest with ourselves. This one I'll carry it, but this other one, it's not for me, it's slowing me down, so that I can keep walking. So I'm happy that we've had this conversation, and also remembering David and him being able to say no immediately without even thinking. That's a spirit I want in my life as well.
Absolutely. Understanding who I am, who I am not, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. Putting your ego down so that you can understand what you're not good at. People think understanding what you're not good at is a weakness, but it's not a weakness. When you understand what you're not good at, then you can focus on what you're good at. Yeah. What's for me, what's not for me. Yeah. What I've been doing just because other people saying what I need to actually shared. Yeah. And I can see some of the comments coming in reaffirming that social media has too much weight, for sure. Yeah. I think a good movie for everybody to watch even is Social Dilemma, so you can understand the manipulation behind the scenes with social media. As much as it's a tool, it can also become an addiction that takes over. So it's actually really, really good to realize that. Mwangi Kevin, you're just saying there's some people who take us 2 steps back behind, whose only time to contact you is to ask for money, loans, nothing more. It's tough. How do we deal with that? Yeah. You know what, like last week I said that the poverty support group, yeah? And sometimes you've just got to turn away from people. The relationship is not serving you. The relationship has come to the end of the season, and sometimes it's just to turn away from people and say, I'm going on a new direction. It's very hard to do it, but sometimes it's about turning away the people, and if not turning away the people, setting boundaries. So maybe you're asked for money or loans, just say no. Just say no. Don't try to to hide, oh, I don't have, just say, no, I'm no longer comfortable lending you money because this and that. So you've set boundaries, and then you'll realize if they stop calling you or wanting to hang out with you, they were never your friends in the first place to actually begin with. I think Richard is one who had said he wants to shed his drinking buddies. So let me repeat that I believe we're in this season of David, not Goliaths, yeah? Simple will outdo the complex. The kind of conversations we're having today will outdo having big technical discussions, yeah? Small will outdo large. Agile will outdo heavy. I kept saying this last time. Identity will outdo stature or title. So for us, the biggest thing is starting to figure out our blueprint. Nobody has come into this world with the same thumbprint as you. That means you are supposed to do something unique. You are supposed to do something different. Yeah. So we've got to start understanding what is that thing that we're supposed to actually do. Now, the week after, we're taking a break next week. And this is why we're taking the break. The final topic is about the weapon. I believe after we've done the turning point, we've had this conversation on shedding the weight. For us to take those steps is about understanding what is the weapon. Once we understand what is the weapon, then slaying our Goliath, overcoming our challenges, achieving our goals, achieving our purposes, then it is different. I know for a fact that going forward, even what we have seen in the world, what we've seen about business, what we've seen about money, what we've seen about careers, the weapons have to be different, yeah? So I really want to take some time. I want to do justice to this conversation, yeah? Basically, God has told me to do justice to this conversation because it is where we understand what are my stones, what are my slingshots, those things that I use, and when I use accurately, my giant falls. That is what is in my spirit to talk about. But I need 2 weeks to prepare for it because I need to do this conversation justice. Whenever we do Make It Sense, we've been telling you we take ad hoc breaks. And the reason we take ad hoc break is sometimes we need to come, refresh, do something. And this particular time, I feel that conversation on weapons is so important and so critical. I firmly believe, and I am even praying about that conversation will unlock a lot of us. It will shift a lot of us. It will be at the end of the month on October 30th, and it is well positioned because we will just be starting a new month, yeah? It's gonna bring together the last two conversations. If you've not taken part or seen the last two conversations, please watch them. And then on October 30th, we will finalize. Next week, we will not have a live session. We'll just do recap of the important points that have come about of the last three conversations. But on the 30th, yeah, we will be back live. I will be back here because we've got to talk about those weapons that we are going to use. If you're in a small business, I don't want you to think like a small business anymore. You are a David. If you're in a job, I don't want you to think that it's only the CEO who can get there. I want you to think differently. If you have little money, I want you to think differently. If you have money that you thought could only do so much, I want to show you how it can do a lot more. I want you to look at yourself differently. So I'm committing to it. So guys, please join me October 30th for that conversation. It's going to be powerful, I know. And I think we will be ready for a new month. We will be ready for a new season after that conversation. So Sheba, thank you so much for joining us today, Sheba. Thank you so much. What a pleasure to always have you, to always share your story and your journey with us. So Sheba, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah.
Pleasure, my pleasure.
So remember, you can get the book Making Sense, where all this started, from the following bookshops. Remember, you can call that number. You can email that on to Beth, whose email address is there. Remember, it's at centonomy.com. Excuse the spelling mistake. You can get it online at Raffo Books, Amazon, Nuria Online Bookshop, bookshops in Nairobi, Bookstopia Center, Africa Book Hub, Barclays Plaza, Prestige Bookshop, in Nakuru, Patmat Bookshop. And we are so excited that we are in Uganda. We will be in Uganda from the beginning of next week, and you can get it from Aristoc Bookshop, Booklex Bookshop, yeah, located in Acacia Mall. So excited. I know a lot of you who listen in and tune in and follow me from Uganda. that is where you can actually get the book from next week. So we're very, very, very excited about that. Yeah. And remember, it is available on Amazon and the other platforms. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking part. Thank you for the engagement. Thank you for everything you've been sharing. Even as I wind up, I'm still seeing comments from Paddy. The shedding, the weight you've been carrying is not meeting your parents' expectations. Yeah, that's the blueprint you've been carrying. It's time to remove that and actually look at yourself and say, what expectations for myself do I really want to carry? And I'm so glad in this conversation you're saying you've shed it. Software, you're adding on self-forgiveness, absolutely, as a function of shedding. With all the mistakes you've made, you are not perfect. You have done your mistakes. Allow yourself, forgive yourself. What a fantastic session. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Thank you to my team behind the scenes, Tessie, Beth, Charity, Steve, and everybody who joined us on social media today. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you October 30th. But as I mentioned, next week we'll replay some of the critical points that have come as a result of the David and Goliath conversations. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.